enhancement management. At the end of the year, people are thinking about Christmas presents and stocking stuffers, and sometimes requests come into you that are like that. The little stocking stuffer requests like, could you just add this one field for me? Or the big things like, could you just implement automatic lead conversion by the end of the year for me? As you look at all of those things, you need to be able to manage those requests. Email is not a good management tool for that sort of request. What we've seen companies do, what we do is we create a form. We'll actually create a custom object in our org for enhancement requests. We'll have an approval process for people to submit an enhancement request for review and approval. We'll have status fields that help us indicate whether or not the request has been submitted, whether it's under consideration, whether it's been accepted or rejected. But just having a mechanism for managing those kinds of enhancement requests, and then a process, a governance process for reviewing and approving or rejecting them, is really important.
I don't think there's anyone on the call who's been in my admin class, but in the admin class, we've used that enhancement request tool as a group exercise through the week. And what's nice about what we can do if we build that into Salesforce is the form for an end user can be very, very specific and short. And then when your ops team looks at it, there might be an additional 50 fields, additional statuses, and so on. And what essentially you can do with this is bake in your standard operating procedures, such as, is there an impact to reporting? Is there an impact to integrations? Have we tested this out? Along with approvals, along with where is this in the status? And you might also have notifications go out to let somebody know that their simple field request or their bigger request has been tackled.
Yep, absolutely. Along those lines, we have another client, and I'm looking at the list and I'm not seeing them on it, unfortunately. But they have objects for that, but they also have an object that they call a production update request object. And if anyone, even on the internal IT or operations team, wants to deploy something to production, you do not deploy directly to production without going through this governance process. You create a production update request. You can upload and validate a change set, but don't you dare try to deploy it until your production update request has been reviewed, approved, scheduled for deployment, and until it's been verified that you've provided pre-deployment information, what steps do they need to take, post-deployment steps, and a set of testing guidelines, what needs to be tested after deployment to confirm that the thing really was deployed correctly. Having processes for the incoming requests and for the end result of those requests at deployment is really important to having some semblance of control over what's going into your system.
I wonder if another concept to share is that governance has to scale. We have some of you on the call that have tens of users in your Salesforce instance, and some of you on the call that have thousands of users in your Salesforce instance. And that governance has to mature along with. So some of what MJ is describing, we work in environments that have, many tens of sandboxes, and there's an absolute progression and a lot of control over, and a lot of times admins may not even ever work in production, which for some of you is probably an amazing thought to think of not ever touching production. But I think just the key concept there is whether it's documentation, whether it's standard operating procedures, they all have to scale. That level of governance has to scale with your operation.